Okay guys, let's continue. Nadula siya actually guys. Kasi nautod naman siya. Okay lang na siya. Utod lang to siya. Kay kanugod man to. Okay guys, kay basta may magtawagan, ika-kautod ang maning problema sa recording. Okay, so let's continue. Other symptoms, as that specific disease may progress, other symptoms may include abdominal pain, loss of sex drive, liver disease, diabetes, heart problems, and skin discoloration. I will explain later why there is diabetes and of course why is there skin discoloration. Symptoms of hemochromatosis typically begin between the ages of 40 to 60 years old, but in some cases children may have symptoms of the disease, which means usually it is occurring in this specific stage, which is of course in your adult life and of course late adulthood. For the information of everyone, the usual is between 40 to 60. You are already full-fledged adults. But the thing here is this, there's a big probability that this can occur earlier during your childhood. So take note. So when it comes to that of hereditary hemochromatosis, it is mostly for that of the old individuals. But again, guys, this can again be seen as symptomatic even in children. Okay, now let us now continue with this one. Let me get my pen here. Okay, let's continue, guys. Hereditary hemochromatosis is considered as the most common autosomal recessive disorder in whites. Take note, among whites, among the Americans, this is the most common autosomal recessive disorder, which is having a prevalence of 1 in out of 300 to 500 individuals. So its frequency is really high. Take note for every 300 to 500 births, guys, we have one which is affected with hereditary hemochromatosis. And the problem here is this, it will usually show up during your late adulthood or early adulthood. So during childhood, hindi ko pa na siya manood. Okay? Let us now continue with that in the next one. Hemochromatosis may be hereditary, meaning it is caused by genetic changes or mutations or pathogenic variants of that specific gene, in which the following are the known genes. Let us start with the first one. Let us again somehow define each and every gene here. FTH1. If you encounter the term FTH1, it refers to, take note of this information, guys, when it comes to that of FTH1, it refers to ferritin, heavy chain 1. Okay, take note of this information. FTH1 is referred to as your ferritin, heavy chain 1. Okay, take note of this one once again. On the other hand, guys, we also have here your hemp. What's the meaning of hemp? When we speak of hemp, guys, hemp refers to that of hepcidin, antimicrobial peptide. That is the meaning of hemp. When it comes to that of hemp, we have here, guys, your hepcidin, antimicrobial peptide. Kanina, FTH1, ferritin, heavy chain 1. For that of our hemp, it is hepcidin, antimicrobial peptide. Next one, guys, we have here your HFE. Okay, this time, we're going to have our HFE. For our HFE, let me just write it here. Of course, you know what to do. You can pause this part of the video, screenshot, or replay over and over again until you have copied everything. HFE is known as your high, letter H here. Fe refers to iron. That's why it is referred to as the high iron gene. But actually, the most correct definition is none other than the human homeostatic, okay? Human homeostatic iron regulator gene. Okay, take note, it is the human homeostatic iron regulator gene. That is for our HFE. Therefore, if it's HFE2, it means human homeostatic iron regulator 2. But guys, it is also referred to as HJV. But for the meantime, as what I stated, HFE is also known as high iron. This is considered as both the defining characteristic and of course the most correct characteristic name. And guys, this one is a defining characteristic that will tell us that iron is indeed increased. On the other hand, guys, when it comes to that of HJV, it is known as hemojuvelin. Tani, wala na may magtawag sa akon. Ay kung may magtawag sa akon, mauntat na naman siya just like the first video. But guys, let's just save the first video because I'm already recording late night. Late night ko sa kung guys ka-record. It's because again, I have been too busy. May duwa ko sa mga call centers na ginapatindong. So ako na siya medyo busy yet. Next one, guys, we also have here, guys, your SCL40A1. Also referred to as, take note, SCl4O. Okay, take note of this one. 14 siya, A1, which is referred to as, please take note, soluble, 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 carrier, 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 okay, family 40, member A1, member A1, member A1. Take note. Okay, when it comes to that of our, once again, SCl40A1, soluble carrier, family 14, member A1. That is for our soluble carrier, family 40, member A1, SCl40A1, which we will also discuss later as we progress as to its relevance. On the other hand, guys, the last that we here is TFR2. Okay, if ever you will encounter the term TFR2, TFR2 refers to transferrin receptor 2. Transferrin receptor 2. So I guess we have already defined each and every gene. Let me see if it is visible there on your part. You can also screenshot this one. And of course, you can increase or zoom it out. Okay, for the information of everyone, guys, as what was stated here, HFE, as what was stated here, is known as high iron, as that defining characteristic. No, but guess when it comes to that of being definitive, as its definition, it is human homeostatic iron regulator. Okay, human homeostatic iron regulator. On the other hand, guys, when it comes to that of our FDH1, it refers to that of our ferritin heavy chain 1. Huh? You have here, guys, your hepcidin antimicrobial peptide. Next one, your HFE2 and HFE1, ara na siya. Of course, HJB is also referred to as hemojuvelin, okay, Juvelin. And of course, SCl40 or 40A1 is known as soluble carrier, family 40, member A1. And last, TFR2 is transferrin receptor 2. Okay? Please take note of this one. Wait lang yun, ha? Homeostatic. Okay, ang akong spelling. Okay, so please take note of this one. This is the correct spelling. Okay, homeostatic. Tama ba? Ito ba yung correct spelling? Okay, paki-check lang natin. I-check talaga na siya karon. Again, hindi ako sagad sa spelling. Okay? Let us now continue with that of the next one, guys. This time, let us now continue with that of the different types. When it comes to that of the types, we have the following types here. Hemochromatosis 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Later, you will see that this actually 6 because the 2 here is somehow subdivided into 2A and 2B. And this will be seen in our table later. You will see that one in our table. Okay? Let us now continue with this one. Please check na lang po yung spelling ng homeostatic. Again, hindi ako magaling sa spelling. Okay? Let me erase the writings that we have here so that we can proceed with the next few information. Okay? Wait lang po. Okay, so guys, let us now proceed with that to the next one. Nagiko na naman siya. Okay ka na mo. Dasig siya magiko, guys. Basta ink ang ginagamit, no? Okay, so we have here. These genes all provide the body with instructions to make proteins that help regulate how iron is absorbed, of course. Okay, next one. How iron is absorbed from the diet. How iron is being transported. And of course, how iron, take note of this information, is being stored. Okay, so when it comes to those proteins, those proteins are actually produced from genes. So the genes here will now detect and of course demand and of course somehow it will provide a certain function for that of the protein, the final product, to regulate iron by again observing how the iron is being absorbed from the diet. So there's regulation, how that specific iron is being transported, of course how it reaches the different body sites, and how it is stored. In this case, if there is a problem in transport, there will be accumulation in a certain site wherein it was left behind. If it is again over storage, accumulation in an organ, and again guys, over absorption, wherein guys, it should be again secreted and excreted, but some of the iron are left behind in different tissues. So guys, whatever is that specific protein is considered as a product of the gene. So if the gene is mutated, the protein becomes mutated, and of course absorbance, transport, and storage are also affected. All of this will result into increased deposition of iron in body tissues. None of the genes here that will be mutated is associated with a decreased iron in our plasma. All will relate to that of the final product, which is increased iron deposition in our body tissues and of course in our plasma associated with problems in absorbance, problems in transportation, and problems in storage. Okay, so pakikopya po. By the way, dugay-dugay ko ni gabalik para at least mabalaan ko if ever visible pa siya or if ever ga-recording pa. Pathogenic variants in these genes cause changes in how iron is absorbed and distributed throughout the body. Guys, this causes iron to accumulate in tissues and organs which can cause organ damage. Take note, iron here, if there is over-deposition in a certain organ, this can be damaging to that organ. Let's continue. Hereditary hemochromatosis is inherited in an autosomal or autosomal recessive or autosomal dominant fashion. It depends on the type of hemochromatosis. So which means let us now somehow narrow our ideas. Let us now somehow distinguish which is again belonging into an autosomal recessive pattern and which of the following types will belong to an autosomal dominant pattern. You know this, if it's autosomal recessive, two mutated genes must be again somehow carried by that of the offspring so that that disease will manifest. If it is again dominant, only one mutated gene can already be equal to the expression of the problem. So we're here for hemochromatosis types 1, 2, and 3, they are inherited in an autosomal recessive manner. So they are inherited in an autosomal recessive manner, such as again your 2A and B. So even 2A and B, guys, even though we may say that 2 is divided into 2, guys, these types, 2A and B subtypes, are all autosomal recessive. Okay na po. In hemochromatosis types 4 and 5, they are inherited in an autosomal dominant fashion. Please remember this one, this may come out in our examination. That's why you should be aware of this information. Okay? Please copy this information, guys. Let us now proceed with that of the next one. So hemochromatosis here is a disease that will show reduced penetrance. Sir, ano ni siya ang buot silingon sang reduced penetrance? Okay, take note. It was stated that when it comes to that of hemochromatosis, it is a disease that shows reduced penetrance. This means that some people with the pathogenic variants causing hemochromatosis never show symptoms of the disease, which means when we speak of reduced penetrance, in the next generations, okay? In the next generations, remember, there are some members of your family who carry, okay? Please take note of some members, so dapat S, no members, who carry that specific mutated gene, okay? So they carry the mutated gene, but there is no expression of the disease. Amo ni gali ang buot silingon, guys, sa, please take note, reduced penetrance. Let me see if it's visible. Okay, tanawon ko ha, yes, visible naman siya. Kaganami man sang agi sa aton pen so far. Okay, so as what was stated here, it is again a certain situation wherein in the next generations, as the mutated gene is being transferred, there is no expression of the disease. Even though they may possess that specific gene, some members of the family will not manifest the disease. However, children or family members who have pathogenic variants causing hemochromatosis may show symptoms of the disease, but usually not all. Take note, as the generation increases, as more and more offsprings and future generations are formed, there may be reduced penetrance wherein the amount of gene transferred, or of course, which is again transposed to that of another individual, to that of another offspring, may have this principle wherein that offspring may not anymore manifest the disease, wherein some members still manifest the disease, but as that specific offspring linkage and of course offspring development continues to that of the future generations, the gene becomes more and more less when it comes to that of being expressed and of course reduced in penetrance. So in one way, guys, or we may say in our own vernacular, no? Okay, let's say for example, mailong ko ako or mahiligay nun ako as the generations, as kasang ang inyong mga kaapo-apuhan, as you transfer that gene to that, let's say for example, to that of your direct child, and eventually your child will also transfer that gene to that of her own or his own child in the future, and of course children of his children. There's a great probability that if that gene is still present, it's still the mutated form, because this gene will not cause the symptoms, although the child is already affected with that mutated gene. Because this specific condition your hereditary hemochromatosis has reduced penetrance. It is not, again, associated with the complete one. So when we speak of the complete penetrance, this is considered as a different case. In complete penetrance, guys, if that possession of a mutated gene is present into an individual, the individual will immediately manifest the signs and symptoms of the disease. This is complete penetrance. If it's complete penetrance, the presence of the mutated gene will always once again correlate with the expression of the disease. So the person at his age of about 40 to 60 will have bronzing, will have pancreatic diseases, will have the manifestations of iron toxicity. So take note of this information when it comes to that of our hereditary hemochromatosis. It is with reduced penetrance. So it is again not complete penetrance, but guys, as what was stated, there may be de novo mutation. When we speak of de novo, if you can still remember, new mutations that can lead to complete penetrance. So we can never understand how genes work, and if you are lucky enough, you'll be having a new mutation which may be detrimental on your part or beneficial in some way. Let's say, there are some mutations which may be beneficial. Let's say, for example, in the long run, for example, when the sun is very, very hot and your offsprings here develop a gene that will somehow provide them with armadillo skins. So guys, they are able to somehow survive with that specific heat or of course extreme heat coming from the sun because of mutation itself. Remember, adaptation. There's a big probability that our future offsprings and of course relatives will become more resistant to that of the heat as the heat of the sun also increases. This is what they call as, yes, adaptation and natural selection. So take note of this one. I hope you and your future offsprings will be naturally selected and not naturally deselected. Kasi kapag deselected ka, patay ka. Ikaw yung matula. Let us now proceed with this one. What are the different early symptoms of our hereditary hemochromatosis? When it comes to that of hereditary hemochromatosis, we have here some early symptoms and of course progressive symptoms. Let's start with the first one. Initial symptoms of hemochromatosis can include the following. Firstly, feeling very tired all the time. You are always fatigued, even though you're just sitting or of course sleeping, reading novels, watching BL shows. Charot, okay, dito sa mga mahilig na mag-watch ng BL. Okay, every night nag-watch ko BL, this can, dapat pa ko brahon, para malingaw lang ko. Pero feeling ko, do fatigue ko, baka mapasi may anak ko ba hemochromatosis. Next one, weight loss, of course. Of course, in this case, I am already somehow excluded because weight loss. And naman, I'm always gaining weight. This time, as you can see, live, or of course, in this case, I have already gained too much weight. Next one, weakness. Some of the early symptoms, so I don't have weight loss. So eventually, and of course, definitely, I have no hemochromatosis. Next one, joint pain. Next one, an inability to get or maintain an erection or erectile dysfunction. Usually, guys, this one is associated with a decrease in libido. And of course, guys, this is associated with hypogonadism. Okay? Take note of this one, guys. When it comes to that of hypogonadism, hypo means less activity, gonadism by that of the gonads. Specifically, guys, a less or a certain low rather in the activity of gonadal hormones. So which means the hormones which are responsible for that of the sex drive of the individual or the libido of the individual, the hormones responsible for sexual relations are usually in low levels. That's why, guys, if that specific hormone is decreased, erectile or of course erection itself will be also problematic. That's why the patients here will undergo erectile dysfunction. So it's not only occurring in males, but also in females. So when it comes to that of females, guys, less aptitude towards that of sex itself. So you do not usually develop that sexual attraction and of course the specific sexual connection with another person. Next one we have here, guys, irregular periods or absent periods. Okay, so in this case, you can somehow experience amenorrhea. Okay, if you are to remember, no, amenorrhea, guys, please take note. We have here, in this case, guys, no, amenorrhea. In this case, there is the absence of menstruation itself, menstrual period. In this case naman, guys, irregular periods, usually you have oligomenorrhea. Okay, so take note of this one, guys. In oligomenorrhea, in this case, you have a decrease in your menstrual cycle, and of course, in this case, also irregular. Decreased menstrual cycle, no regular 1 month or 28-day cycle, and of course, guys, usually it can be only once a year, twice a year, or of course, guys, it can be per quarter. So for information of everyone, oligomenorrhea and of course amenorrhea. Amenorrhea absence, oligomenorrhea decreased or irregular. These symptoms can have many different causes and may sometimes just be because of getting older. Although we may say, guys, this can be associated with an atrophy of the ovaries. Now, di ba pwede man? Guys, as we females, charot na, okay? As females here usually age, as you can see, females will also develop that specific stage or will reach that specific stage known as menopause. Menopause is actually a physiologic atrophy of your ovaries, which means nag-menopause ka, no menstrual cycle, upon reaching, no, again, the full-fledged status, you already have amenorrhea. Wala ka gid sa menstrual cycle or menstruation. But upon, again, approaching menopausal stage, you also have irregular periods or oligomenorrhea. So in this case, guys, it's very similar with the manifestations of old age. But again, guys, this can happen earlier than what is expected due to that of hypogonadism. Remember, hypogonadism or a decrease in the function of our gonads due to a decrease in the amount of gonadal hormones may affect both males and females. That's why they will usually have this decreased aptitude towards sex or of course decreased sex drive or libido. Okay, so kindly remember this information. Let us now continue with that of the next one. Very good. Nag-go pa man ang ato na video. Okay. Yes, later problems, of course, after this consequent problems, we can also do have here, guys, here later problems, specifically if it's already occurring for several years. As the condition progresses, it can also cause problems such as following. Okay, still the same. Loss of sex drive, also referred to as libido, but actually it is already starting at the start itself. Guys, darkening of the skin, if you are white, you may look permanently tanned. This is what they call as the bronzing. Okay, take note, this is what they call as the bronzing of the skin. This is what they call as the bronzing of the skin because during this time, there is deposition of melanin. Deposition of melanin. You will somehow notice that even though you are not basking yourself under the sun, there is still that bronzing or of course that specific coloration, which is of course tanning in our skin, even though no exposure or less exposure to that of the sun. And of course, if you are exposed under the sun, this is again faster bronzing or tanning. But this one is a permanent type of tanning due to that of the deposition of melanin, also associated with the activation of the melanocytes due to the deposition of iron in the skin. Oh, so if iron is being deposited into the skin, there's a great probability, guys, that your melanocytes will release more of its melanogen. And remember, with just, again, a little increase in UV or a little increase in that of sun exposure, you will undergo tanning. But this tanning is already permanent. Remember, melanin is brown to black in color. So if you are already fair skin, bronzing. If you are again black in skin, more blackening, diba? Next one, guys. We also have here tummy or abdominal pain and swelling. Remember, this is again associated with the deposition of iron into different body organs. So whatever is that body organ affected, that body organ, depending on its function and action, may also manifest a problem associated with such organ. So in this case, abdominal pain and swelling, yellowing of the skin, and of course of the eyes, due to that of the fact that if you are to remember, it usually affects the liver. So this can cause again a consequent hepatitis or even cirrhosis in the near future due to that of the consequent and of course permanent scarring of the liver. Next one, you always feel thirsty all the time and you need to pee frequently. So there is polydipsia, increased thirst, and of course, guys, there is polyuria. If you are to remember, guys, this can also add up as polyphagia because for the information of everyone, one of the most common areas affected by that of iron deposition is your pancreas. And if you are to recall, if the pancreas are affected, there may be a problem in your beta islets of Langerhans or the beta cells of the pancreas. And as the beta cells of the pancreas are affected, guys, there may be a decrease in the production of insulin. There may be a decrease in the production of insulin. Remember, a decrease in the production of insulin and of course a damage in insulin receptors will always lead to diabetes mellitus. For the information of everyone, once again, it is pronounced as diabetes mellitus because it came from the word melli, which means sweet. For the information of everyone, that's the reason why the person or the patient also exhibits polydipsia, polyuria, and polyphagia. Polydipsia, increased thirst, polyuria, increased urination, and polyphagia, increased food intake. For the information of everyone, these are all considered as the pathognomic signs of diabetes mellitus. Actually, the pathognomic symptoms of diabetes mellitus, because when we speak of symptoms, they are usually felt by the patient, and the signs are what we as clinicians and of course as medtechs are able to see. Okay. Let us now continue with that of the next one, guys. Let us erase the writings once again. Okay, guys, it will also manifest severe pain and stiffness in your joints, particularly the fingers. So there is probability of arthritis. Chest pain. Remember, this can also be deposited into the heart. And if there is deposition in our heart, myocardial infarction may be possible. So the patient may suffer from MI or cardiac arrest. Myocardial infarction. I know that you're very much familiar with this one as this can also be associated with a decrease in the supply of that specific oxygen in our heart, and of course the muscle itself will die, will undergo necrosis and then infarction. Guys, you will discuss more of this in your general pathology. Next one, there is also a probability for shortness of breath, of course, as it also will allow the deposition of iron in your diaphragm and of course in your lungs. Swelling of your hands and feet, you know this one already. This is associated also with that of edema itself. So we have here probability of dactylitis. Dactylitis, it is again the swelling of our extremities such as your hands and feet. And of course, guys, now fingers and toes. Next one, an irregular heartbeat, also referred to as arrhythmia. Arrhythmia. Remember, it affects the heart. And the testicles are also getting smaller. So the testicles will become small. And of course, it may be associated with hypogonadism. Remember, the lower the hormone, the lower the amount of testosterone, the smaller the organ will be. It will undergo atrophy. It becomes smaller. So in this case, guys, there may be micro-orchidism. Okay, so take note of this information, guys. There may be micro-orchidism. So, guys, remember this information. Yes, if ever, all of this are associated with that of the deposition of iron itself. Okay, guys, so we have here a certain picture, and I know that this picture is also given to you. If ever this picture is not again part in our presentation as what was submitted to you, guys, kindly inform me so that I can screenshot this one and of course somehow send this one to you. But again, those conditions were already mentioned just a while ago. So aside from that one, we can have hair loss, memory loss. So the deposition of iron into your brain can also cause that specific loss of brain matter. And remember, guys, as brain matter is lost, cerebral function is also affected. That's the reason why vertigo can also be, once again, somehow one of these manifestations as it is associated with the loss of balance. Next one, guys, as what was stated here, heart degeneration, arrhythmia, and cardiomyopathy. Guys, another one, hepatomegaly. Oh, there is hepatomegaly. Guys, which means increase in liver size, of course, volume itself. Next one, elevated liver enzymes such as your ALT, and of course, guys, your AST. And we can also include an elevation in our ALP. Don't worry, this will be defined during your clinical chemistry. As what I stated, the liver will undergo scarring. Kapag scarring na, there is cirrhosis. Of course, the deposition of iron, increased iron deposition in our pancreas can also lead to that of the destruction of your pancreatic beta islet cells that produce your insulin. So therefore, there can be diabetes mellitus. And guys, testicular atrophy, which means when we speak of atrophy, this refers to that of the decrease in the size of a certain organ due to the loss of its own tissue. So which means in this case, testicular atrophy, the specific testicles or testes of the individual decreases. Again, due to a decrease in gonadal hormones. And of course, arthritis is very evident. Okay na. Let us now continue with that. The next one, guys. You can screenshot this part. I can also provide you with a picture for a more bigger presentation. Okay? Let us now continue with that of the next one. Of course, when it comes to that of our hereditary hemochromatosis, we have the following types: the manner of inheritance, and of course, guys, the gene, and the final product, which is of course the protein, and onset, together with that of the phenotypic characteristic. Let me see if it's visible on your part there. Okay, it is visible. But if ever, guys, again, because it is already recorded, you can just zoom it out. Okay, let us now continue with this one. Let's start with the first one, guys. When it comes to that of the pattern of inheritance, if you can still remember in our pattern of inheritance, na-remember pa ba? Very easy lang. In our pattern of inheritance, if you can still recall, types 1, 2A, 2B, and 3 are all autosomal recessive. So let's just indicate as AR, and AR is already representing an autosomal recessive form. Take note, types 1, 2A, 2B, 3 are all autosomal recessive. And of course, guys, autosomal dominant for that of our type 4 and 5, which means penetrance is greater in type 4 and 5 than that of our types 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. Take note, when it comes to that of our autosomal recessive, take note, guys, 2 copies must be mutated for the manifestation of the disease. For our autosomal dominant, 1 copy alone can already allow the manifestation of that disease, or hereditary hemochromatosis in this case. Okay? Gabalik-balik ko di guys, so kay ginatan ako gid siya basi mapatay siya balagulpi. Okay, let's now continue with this one for our genes. What are the associated gene for each and every item here? For our type 1, it is associated with HFE. O, na-remember nyo? Guys, high iron. Letter H stands for high. Fe stands for our iron, but actually it is your human homeostatic iron regulator. Remember ba? Next one, type 2A. Siya na po ito. For HFE2, if you can remember your hemojuvelin or HJV. Hemojuvelin or HJV is the correct answer. That is for type 2A. For type 2B, for the information of everyone, remember nyo, ay yung hepcidin, okay? The HAM, hepcidin antimicrobial peptide, also referred to as the HAM. The hepcidin antimicrobial peptide, also referred to as your HAM. Remember ba? Of course siya. Okay, ito nga, alam nyo to. Okay, TFR2 or transferrin receptor 2 for that of our type 3. For our type 4, of course, no, kilala nito, SCL40A1, the soluble, take note of this information, guys, that specific soluble family, no, 40, and of course, member A1, soluble carrier family, 40, and of course, A1, member A1. Next one, guys, last but not the least, for this one, yung wala na lang, if you can remember, the heavy chain, okay, di ba? Guys, you have here, guys, your ferritin, heavy chain 1. Okay, so take note of this information, guys. The correct answer for this one is your ferritin heavy chain 1. Ano ba? Mga ako na tinadula. Okay, the ferritin heavy chain 1. Okay, so take note of this information, guys. Your genes are as follows for type 1. Guys, if you have to remember the human homeostatic iron regulator, hemojuvelin for type 2A, hepcidin, antimicrobial peptide for type 2B. For type 3, that is your transferrin. Okay, take note of this one, guys. Transferrin receptor 2 for that of our type 4, SCL40A1, and type 5, this is your ferritin heavy chain 1. Okay? But in some cases, no, also FH1 lang siya, pero mas complete ang FH1. Now, let's not proceed with this one. Of course, whatever is the gene, the protein is very, very similar with it. So in this case, guys, the protein is still HFE protein. So the gene is HFE, the protein is still HFE. For this one, the protein is hemojuvelin. Didn't spell out lang. Hemojuvelin protein. For this one, hepcidin. Okay, as the term implies, hepcidin. So you will never be mistaken because the name of the protein is associated with that of the name of the gene. For this one, of course, transferrin receptor. For this one, of course, your transferrin receptor. Transferrin receptor. Next one, guys, for that of our SCL40. Basta mo ba most soluble carrier protein? No, this is your ferroportin. Okay, ferroportin. Ferroportin. And of course, last but not the least, we have here, guys, your ferritin, okay, your ferritin heavy chain, okay, the heavy chain protein. So take note of this information once again. So these are our expected proteins for our gene HFE. HFE also is the name of the protein. For our type 2A, the gene is HJV. Of course, the protein is hemojuvelin. For type 2B, hepcidin. For type 3, that is TFR, transferrin receptor. Next one, guys, we have here for that of our receptor 2 na siya, the same na sila Japan. Next one for our type 4, SCL40. This is the only one that is differentiated from the others, ferroportin, because the name itself is not associated with its gene name. And of course, last but not the least, ferritin heavy chain 1 for our type 5. That is ferritin heavy chain also for that of the usual protein. It can be called as heavy chain 1 or heavy chain alone. Let us now proceed with that to the next one. Nagasigi pa run ato na video. Okay, last but not the least, guys, onset and of course phenotype. One is the onset for the following. Guys, for that of type 1, it is usually adult onset. So usually 40 to 60 years of age. And for the information of everyone, this is only moderate. This is only moderate when it comes to its manifestation. So moderate manifestation. Next one, guys, we have here for our type 2B or 2A. For our type 2A, it is usually seen during childhood. And for the information of everyone, let's say, for example, the earlier the onset, the greater is the severity. Next one for type 2B, it's also childhood, guys. Again, the earlier the onset, the greater is the severity. Of course, the greater is the gravity of the disease. For our type 3, usually, guys, young adults, which means, guys, this can occur between 30 to 40. And of course, guys, it's also moderate when it comes to its phenotype. Next one, guys, when it comes to that of the onset for type 4, it is usually for, please take note, adults, and of course, it is also moderate when it comes to its phenotype characteristic. And guys, for type 5, it was stated that it can be any age, and the manifestation is mild to moderate. Mild to moderate. Any age, manifestation is mild to moderate. Okay, so kindly copy this information. I hope that it is still clear on your part there so that we can proceed with that to the next one. Wait now, let me touch this part so that we can proceed. Let us now continue with that to the next one, guys. Let me erase the writings that we have here. This is what I am supposed to provide you with because there is a reason for us for differentiation. Differential characteristics of when it comes to that of diagnosing a certain disease as it is again separated from another disease. I will show you the expected blood profile for a person having hereditary hemochromatosis, and I will compare this one with the opposite. Hereditary hemochromatosis is opposed, of course, when it comes to the characteristic levels of the following analytes that we have here with that of, or by that of, your iron deficiency anemia. So let's have this one, guys. In our hereditary hemochromatosis, these are our expected result. For serum iron, it is increased. For serum ferritin storage, we have here, guys, increased. For transferrin, this is actually no ferritin, iron storage. Next one, guys, transferrin iron saturation percentage, it's also increased. Total iron binding capacity, it is decreased. Transferrin, it is decreased. And guys, hemoglobin, that is normal. For the information of everyone, this is associated with hereditary hemochromatosis. Okay, so you can screenshot this part of the video, guys, or you can also pause and of course replay it over and over again until you have a complete grasp of the necessary information. Or of course, guys, you can just again repeat it over and over again to copy the necessary information. As what I have stated in our expected blood profile for our hereditary hemochromatosis, iron must be increased, ferritin must be increased, transferrin iron saturation percentage is also increased. But the total iron binding capacity and transferrin are both decreased. And hemoglobin is normal, which means in this case, the person may not be suffering from anemia. Okay? So remember this information because I'm going to erase this. And for the sake of differential diagnosis, I will provide you with that of the opposite for this condition. If hereditary hemochromatosis is associated with increased iron in our plasma or serum and increased deposition of the same element in our organs, guys, we have here another condition known as iron deficiency anemia. The next condition that we have here is iron deficiency anemia. For the information of everyone, when it comes to that of iron deficiency anemia, it is the opposite of the results that we have for hereditary hemochromatosis. It is the opposite of the results that we have for hereditary hemochromatosis. For serum iron, it is decreased. For our serum ferritin, it is also decreased. For our transferrin iron saturation percentage, it's also decreased. The total iron binding capacity is increased. Your transferrin here is increased and your hemoglobin now is decreased because the patient is undergoing anemia. If you are to compare the results that we've had just a while ago, it is completely the opposite for our hereditary hemochromatosis. For hereditary hemochromatosis, again, review, iron is increased, ferritin is increased, transferrin iron saturation percentage is increased, total iron binding capacity is decreased, and transferrin is also decreased, while hemoglobin is again within normal levels. But when it comes to that of iron deficiency anemia, the complete opposite, because in this case, iron is depressed. Maybe due to that of transport, due to that of absorption, or by the diet source itself. Iron is decreased, ferritin is decreased, transferrin iron saturation percentage is also decreased, total iron binding capacity is increased, the opposite again of our hemochromatosis, transferrin is increased, and of course hemoglobin is decreased. So in this case, the patient now is suffering from anemia. Okay, so remember this information because it is needed for our differential diagnosis. Of course, when it comes to that of diagnosis, the diagnosis of hereditary hemochromatosis is based on the clinical features of the disease. These features will include the following. So the first one is diffuse hyperpigmentation. For your information, diffuse hyperpigmentation, there may be hyperpigmentation in your arms, but not on your legs, in your face, but none on your neck. So this is diffuse. But remember, there is bronzing if you are considered as a fair-skinned individual, and there is a great probability of intense blackening if you are already a brown-skinned individual. We also have here, guys, hepatomegaly. We also do have here, guys, hepatomegaly. Again, what's the meaning of hepatomegaly when it comes to that of our hepatomegaly? If you can still recall, it is increase in, yes, the size of our liver. And of course, guys, we also have here diabetes mellitus. It's very obvious because it is affecting our pancreas. The deposition, again, of iron in our pancreas will also lead to the destruction of our beta islet cells of Langerhans, which are responsible for the production of insulin. Remember, less insulin, diabetes mellitus, which is associated with hyperglycemia. Perform early genetic testing or liver biopsy to avoid complications of hemochromatosis. So if it is done earlier, if the sign, which is again bronzing, is already noticed, if it is done earlier, you can solve this one, because the only problem is when most of our iron deposits here are already accumulated in a certain organ, the organ will undergo dysfunction. Okay. Let us now continue with this one. Another one, we have here examination of HFE mutations is pivotal for the diagnosis of hemochromatosis. Remember, that is hemochromatosis type 1, and it is the most common. The discovery of the HFE gene, or human homeostatic iron regulator gene, allows easy differentiation of hereditary hemochromatosis from other forms of hepatic iron overload, including this metabolic hepatosiderosis. So this one is only associated with liver deposition of iron. But if you already see or saw the presence of our HFE, this will now be a pivotal idea that indeed there is hereditary forms of hemochromatosis, and it will not only affect the liver but also all other organs of the body. And for the information of everyone, this is believed to be the criterion standard for the diagnosis of hereditary hemochromatosis until testing of HFE gene was introduced. Guys, now the gold standard is that specific molecular testing for the presence of HFE mutated gene. But before, guys, for the information of everyone, they are doing liver biopsy And of course, the histotechnologic, okay, histotechnologic examination of tissues wherein they were able to see iron accumulation in those areas in whatsoever histopathologic component of the body. Okay? So which means in whatsoever part of that tissue or tissue in the body that is undergoing pathology. So take note, liver biopsy and histotechnologic examination of tissues which will show the presence of iron accumulation was again done before that advent of HFE gene determination through molecular testing. So before they do this through pathology, but now molecular pathology. Okay? Let us now continue with that in the next one. Of course, when it comes to that of our treatment for hemochromatosis may include reducing iron levels by removing blood. For the information of everyone, for some individuals, they undergo phlebotomy. When it comes to that of phlebotomy, it's not the usual phlebotomy that we are doing. Remember, as a med tech, you are doing practices such as phlebotomy for the collection of blood, for that of again, for that specific formation of plasma, and of course serum from that sample. In this case, in phlebotomy, this is known as therapeutic phlebotomy. In therapeutic phlebotomy, approximately 250 ml to 500 ml of blood will be taken from the patient in order to decrease the amount of iron. Of course, as more of the blood has been drawn, guys, more iron will also be drawn with the blood and less iron deposition and accumulation in the tissues. That's why they usually do therapeutic phlebotomy. It's not again drawing only with 5 ml or 10 ml of blood. This is 250 to 500 ml of blood. As more blood is drawn, more iron is removed from the body, and the lesser is the deposition of iron in our system. Of course, for others, they make use of iron chelation therapy. They also make use of iron chelation therapy. This is chelation. Okay? They also make use of iron chelation therapy with this specific agent, disperoxide. Okay? Also known as disperioxamine. Okay, take note of this information. Guys, as what was stated here, they also make use of this iron chelation therapy. Again, when we speak of our iron chelation therapy, we're talking about your disperioxamine. Guys, what is the meaning of iron chelation? Very obvious po. If it is iron, iron will be matched, or we have here complex with this disperioxamine, and eventually they can be removed in the body. So that is iron chelation therapy. A complex, forms a complex so that it can be easily excreted or secreted. Next one, dietary changes that will now prevent you from eating iron-rich foods such as, let's say, for example, your liver, chicken liver, and of course the treatment for complications of the disease. The goal of treatment is to reduce the amount of iron in the body to normal levels to prevent or delay organ damage from excess iron and maintain normal amounts of iron throughout the lifetime. Okay, which means one thing, if you decrease the amount of body iron, you also decrease the probability of having iron deposited into your body or into any other organ. This may prevent or delay organ damage from excess iron through this perioxamine, and of course maintain normal amounts of iron throughout the lifetime, wherein if you are an individual having hereditary hemochromatosis, if iron transport, if iron absorption and storage have been regulated through different means, whether it is lifestyle, diet, or medication, guys, you can live a normal life. Okay, let us now continue with this one. Phlebotomy helps to remove excess iron from that of the body. Most people begin treatment with weekly therapeutic phlebotomy, although sometimes treatment is initially twice a week if iron levels are very elevated. So the doctor here will somehow suggest whatever is the frequency of phlebotomy, and this frequency will be also correlated with the amount of iron that you have. That's why iron kinetics and of course iron measurement must be done in order for us to completely assess the situation. And of course, guys, we have here maintenance phlebotomy usually involves treatment every 2 to 4 months, and iron chelation therapy may be recommended for some people with hemochromatosis if they have other health issues. Which means, guys, if you already have normal iron levels, for every 2 to 4 months, guys, you will have maintenance phlebotomy still to again monitor. Iron chelation is recommended for people if they have other health issues. So there's a problem when it comes to phlebotomy itself. Maybe they have hypertension. This involves removing excess iron using medications. Through chelation. Dietary recommendations for people with hemochromatosis may include avoiding alcohol and red meat, which are again very rich in iron and alcohol, which will allow easy, take note of this one guys, absorption of iron and of course increase liver disease. People with hemochromatosis are not recommended to take iron or vitamin C supplements because vitamin C supplements also increases iron absorption. So hindi lang iron, also vitamin C. And of course guys, prevention, dietary changes such as avoiding multivitamins. Ginabalikan ko kay basi bala mapatay na siya, no? Vitamin C supplements and iron supplements which can increase iron throughout your body. No alcohol use because this increases the risk of liver damage. And of course, we have here increased iron absorption and deposition. And steps to prevent infections including not eating uncooked fish and shellfish and getting recommended vaccinations. Remember, if you are eating uncooked fish or shellfish, you can have infections which will be once again somehow adding up more injury to that already, we may say, present condition. And of course, including those type of vaccinations against hepatitis A and B because the liver, the heart, and the pancreas are the usual signs. Therefore, we must also prevent additional diseases on those sites in order not to aggravate the situation. Okay, so that ends our first part, of course, which is your, yes, ano nga to? Hereditary hemochromatosis. And of course, we will proceed with that of the last topic, which is Huntington's for the next recording. Thank you very much.